But before we start, I kind of want to do a quick poll here, which I'm going to post here. Publish. Oh, I guess you can also show the poll on the stage. Who here has ever doubted their ability to influence technical teams? I was seeing a lot of yeses. Wow, the number just kept going up. Cool. Wow. Well, you are definitely at the right place today then. Let me hide this poll from the stage. Cool. Because today we're going to flip that narrative. I'm going to break it down to you to see this one single takeaway, if you can take away from my today's session, is you don't need to know how to code to make an impact. And I absolutely believe that wholeheartedly. And when I was deciding which topic I'm going to talk about in this conference, and when I decided I'm going to talk about this, I kind of also interviewed my EM, which is my engineering manager, and some of my engineers on the team as well. I kind of asked them if a PM who's like me, doesn't have any technical backgrounds, they are a little bit afraid of talking to their engineering partners. What are some of the tips that you could share? So my EM shared with me this quote. He said, one needs to be vulnerable, but also it's very important to show the PM side of their superpower in order to bridge the gaps. And right now you may be a little bit confused. Be vulnerable. What does that mean? Nobody wants to look foolish, right, at workplace. We want to look like we absolutely know every single thing. So how exactly can you be vulnerable? And also, what exactly are PM superpower? We're going to talk about this quote at the very end as well. A little bit about me and my journey into product. I was born in Shanghai, China. I came to the US 7 years ago to pursue my bachelor's degree in psychology, which again could be a shocking fact, in this liberal arts college in the East LA Claremont Consortium. And right now I am a lead product manager at Bill, which it is a tech company that provides software for SMBs to streamline their financial operations. And I kind of want to pause here and share a little bit more about how I break into product, because I know it is super hard for someone that's early career or mid-career. There are tons of RPMs, APM programs out there, but I think the acceptance rate is almost down to single digit right now. And it's so hard to transition mid-career as well, because they're always looking for people with XYZ years of experience. So my journey to product is not linear at all. I don't have a computer science background. I don't have a business background. I have none of the PM internships. What I did is after graduating college, I joined Bill to do market research and product marketing. And then I quickly realized if you have to kind of categorize the job functions in a tech company, it's literally just two categories. I mean, if you categorize them quite ruthlessly, Bill's sells the product and also build the product, right? And I realized in my journey so far, I have always been focusing on selling the product. Doing the marketing and also in my past internships and past jobs, I've done a lot of branding, just marketing and advertising in general. I was very interested in how to sell the product. So what I did instead of just recruiting full time is I ended up doing some passion projects on the side. I found a group of MBA students in Berkeley, and I ended up making a food social commerce app called Meat Food together with them. And that actually also got accepted into the Berkeley's kind of incubator called Skydeck. So here I'm encouraging everybody, if you want to pivot to product, but you cannot find any formal program to start with, just start something of your own. And it doesn't have to be digital at all. It doesn't have to be an app, something on a computer. It could be just your small business, just so you know how you build things from the scratch, how you really build a product from day one. I think this is a great learning journey for me. And I end up leveraging that to pivot into a product at my company. Okay, so you've heard enough about me. Now let's talk about exactly how you can win your engineering team's heart over. And rule number one, know your superpower, and which is know the product and the user really well. Now you may think this is so cliche, like this is the basics. This is PM 101. Of course, as a PM, I have to write user story, right? I have to know the product and the user really well. But this is particularly important because you have to leverage your domain experience and focus on the why when you're talking to your engineering teams. When you're discussing roadmap with them, you don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of, hey, what's around this API, or how the backend really works. You don't want just to structure the solution of your final product. You want to talk about what needs to be built instead of how XYZ is getting built. This is how you can be able to influence them and guide those technical decisions. This is particularly important. The second thing is partnering and setting the stage for success. I have a little something here. I know setting up metrics can be annoying, right? Writing all those OKRs. This is a memes I found online around writing up OKRs. But I do want to highlight, OKRs, how to craft OKRs can be a whole nother session of its own, but OKR process is very, very important. This is kind of like the yin and the yang came together, right? This is where your PM strategy meets engineering team execution. Because when we are building some product together, it is almost like playing a team sport. You want to make sure your North Star metrics is correct. And it is not just about setting up the goals when you're setting up the OKRs. It's about setting up the whole direction of your teams, where the team is going together. So as a PM, your role in this OKR structuring is not about knowing what to build and how to be built. It's about to make sure you're aligning what your engineering team is building with these key objectives, what the end OKRs and KPIs your team are driving towards. You don't need to dive into the technical details, but you do need to make sure everyone is on the same page about what success looks like. I've seen a lot of situations where teams are in silos. PMs be like, I want to build XYZ because it's going to drive 10 or 20% of growth rate revenue on this feature. And engineering come in and be like, no, we're not shipping that in Q1, so we're not going to have 20% revenue increase. That's the mismatch we don't want to happen, and that's how you would end up failing this team sport. The next one, embrace differences and collaborate, right? There are going to be times where you don't see eye to eye, where you disagree with one another. You're probably, there are times where you're rolling eyes inside when someone is talking. You're like, absolutely disagree with what this person is talking about. But disagreement is actually a good thing. What's important is how you talk through those different perspectives. Because at the end of the day, I put a quote here, remember, team sport. You're playing a team sport. So it's important to kind of change that disagreement into, hey, why don't we just bounce ideas of one another? Even though I disagree with you, but talk me through, like, why you're thinking about this way, right? Or you can frame some open questions such as, okay, if you're disagreeing with me on this, what do you think then is the best approach to achieve this outcome? This would make the other party feel that you are respecting their expertise in how to make sure engineering is going to happen, but also you're giving them a chance to speak up regarding how you're feeling, how they're feeling, right? And also you can ask questions like, how can we optimize this process for better performance of XYZ metrics? And I think the key takeaway here is you have to remember everyone is learning, experimenting, and iterating, not just at jobs, but also in our lives. There's absolutely no right or wrong way to do things. So disagreements is okay, and it do happen all the time. And sometimes it's okay to have disagreements. You also don't want to be a yes man, right? Just follow what everybody was saying. I think the last one is one thing that I kind of struggle with, and it kind of comes back to the quote earlier, which is vulnerability, right? I think this is the biggest myth in the room. I do want to mention that it's okay to show your vulnerable side to create trust, especially as a non-technical PMs. It's literally something that we don't talk about enough. And I have a meme here that I just found in one of the Reddit forum. It may look a little bit too extreme. So all the time, we should be able to ask dumb questions. Probably not questions like these, but it's totally okay to ask questions if you don't know anything, right? And honestly, I think it's better to be upfront rather than pretending, because that transparency is going to build up trust. If they're talking to you about XYZ and your response be like, yes, they're gonna expect you to come out with a whole different outcome because they would assume that you already know how this whole thing works. But if you pause and be like, hey, I actually don't really understand how this truly works. Would you mind breaking it out to me? Nobody is gonna say no to that. And I think, in fact, your engineering teams is gonna be very appreciative of that because you raise the hand, be like, hey, I actually don't know how this works. So they are more patient and are more glad to break it down for you. But I also want to mention that even though it's okay to admit that you don't know something, you have to let the side of you that knows the thing to shine, right? This kind of goes back to the first point, which is as a PM, your superpower is that you know the user, you know the market, you know the competition. So you have to let that side shine truly and let that guide with your conversations with your engineering team. Okay, so here I just want to talk about a little, to put things into perspectives, 3 other kind of fun things I do with my team on a daily kind of practice to make sure my team is full of fun and love. Number one, acknowledge and celebrate success. I think this goes without saying. As a PM, of course, we don't know how to code, right? We rely on our stakeholders to do design, to do data scientists. So you have to make sure everybody gets the credit when the project is getting pushed. Second is foster a team ritual. So me personally, always throw in some memes or some trivias when we were doing bug bash. Because to be honest, nobody likes bug bash. It's literally examining your work and finding loopholes. But if you can fostering a fun environment before you go down a rabbit hole, it's gonna make everybody feel super tight. Number 3 is fill in the gaps when needed, even if they're not product tasks. So here you have to be kind of, again, going back to the concept a little bit, the yin to the yang. So once some engineer is not available for some technical meeting or for some bug bash or testing schedulings, what if you step in to help fill into that gaps? That's going to make your engineering teams feel very appreciative of you, but also it's your learning process as well. You being sitting in those meetings is also a chance for you to learn what's going on. So these are just 3 things I do on a daily basis to make sure my team is functioning as it. And these are kind of the 4 key takeaways. And I kind of want to, just to sum everything up, we're bringing back the quote again, which is be vulnerable and also show your superpower. I think right now we probably have a bit solid, more understanding what being vulnerable stands for, what your PM's superpower is. And again, the PEM superpower is truly, you know the user, you know their story, you're a bit closer than the actual end user compared to an engineering team. And this is how you're balancing things out with your engineering partner. You're helping them to bridge the gaps. And a little fun fact with my engineering team is we know each other really well to a point we're almost saying the exact same thing in meetings, we're thinking the same. And this is the kind of rhythm you want to get into when you're in a work environment, right? You want to have that fun and that momentum. And here's my LinkedIn if you have more questions, if you want to connect with me. I know I only have 20 minutes, so I do want to also open up to Q&A as well. And let me move over to some of the Q&A. Okay. I think everybody can see the things here. Okay, first question. How can I buy, sorry, I don't want to pronounce your name wrong, FNU. How can I overcome fear of coding as I do not have coding background? I also don't have coding background, even though I have dabbled into coding a little bit when I was in college. But man, I just couldn't do it. I know people do software engineering like they really enjoy it, but it's definitely not for me. what I want you to know is back to the first key takeaway I want everybody to have is you don't need to know how to code to make an impact. What's more important is you have to have the curiosity, though, to try to understand how things work and bring in that additional perspectives. An example is there are many, many kind of calling API things I don't really know. I sometimes rely on ChatGPT to explain it to me, or I would drag my engineers at the end of a call, be like, do you have 5 minutes? Can I repeat back to you to say how things work? But I think like as to individual line coding and how that works, you don't really need to know too much details about that. Hopefully that answers your questions. The next one is, and by the way, if you have more questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. How to resolve imposter syndromes for career switches. And oh, there is a comment there. Okay. Somebody's saying, oh, I love this person's response. This person said, I study computer science. I still have imposter syndrome. Remember that you're not alone. So that's really the key here. Remember that you're not alone. Everybody would feel a little bit of imposter syndrome here and there. But I think that's something you need to resolve with yourself. And also, don't feel afraid of talking through your feelings with your peers or your managers if you're feeling such syndrome. I sometimes feel like I don't really deserve all the love, deserve all the great teams that I have right now. But you also have to give some credit to yourself, right? You definitely worked really, really hard to get to where you are today. Yeah. So to the first question, I also found some people commented on there. Yes, some people left university and never graduated. That's definitely true. University is just giving you resources. So you need to do it alone. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, another one. From Kyle, what was the hardest part for you to break into product? I think, to be honest, it's still a problem today in today's job market. As someone who doesn't have product experience, right? I think the traditional route would be to apply for those RPM program or APM program, which is associate product manager or rotational product manager, to kind of aim for early careers for people that doesn't have any product experience. But those programs are really insane to get into, even though they're saying you don't need to have product experience, but it ends up everybody has product experience, right? The pool that you're competing with. So I think the hardest part is actually try to get creative. What are some of the ways that you can kind of break into product without going through the traditional route? Try to come up with your own thing that you don't need to rely on one another to do. I think that was pretty hard. It took me a while to figure out.
Yeah, I think also startups are a good place to get a foot in the door. Maybe they might be less rigorous in terms of like APMs are at big companies and RPMs. Those are very competitive versus startups are more likely to give first timers a chance. And then you can then get your next job as a product manager. I think we're about out of time, but thank you so much for this inspiring talk. We took lots of notes and I'm sure we'll be adding you on LinkedIn and asking you more questions.